when will the whole thing be over, as far as counting is concerned? When will the results be declared?
Well, I think at this point we would like to take a look at that report which we have lined up. It's called Voting into the Night. I understand that INEC has actually stated before that results probably will be declared on Monday. And so let's hear from our correspondent, Chris Illems, who actually covered the latter part of voting, which extended into the night.
It was a harvest of complaints when these voters met with us at Olowora, Isheri, as at 5 p.m. Their frustration ranged from non-accreditation to unavailability of voting materials.
We are waiting for ballot paper. They went for it at the Isheri Grammar School. Up to now, they are waiting is to no avail up to the moment that we are talking now. But we believe that we will wait for them, even if it is 8 o'clock. We will have to vote here. When they bring the paper, they will meet us here.
The case was not different when we visited Isheri Grammar School, where a large crowd of people waited patiently to either get accredited or begin the voting process. They blamed the INEC officials for the slow process.
As you can see right now, they've just started calling us all over again, that they have decided to do it manually now. So that's what's happening now. And they are now calling alphabetically names, not the numbers they made us take from since 8 o'clock. We were here from since 8 o'clock. People picked number up to 400 and something. Yes, now they are starting alphabetically at 5 something. So whoever is responsible for this, we need to know. I think this is a sabotage.
However, we decided to pay a visit to the central collating unit, and what we met there was a near chaotic situation. It was more or less a shouting match between presiding officers and INEC officials as they jostled to get ballot papers for their units. While sensitive materials were seen flying around in the poorly lit classrooms, it took the presence of security personnel to ensure there was no breakdown of law and order. As at 7 p.m. when we left the place, some unit had not been given ballot papers. Chris Illems, Channels Television News.
Well, that was our correspondent, Chris Illems, who actually looked at the situation where voting had to extend into the maybe the early hours of the evening when darkness was already falling, and of course the attendant challenges of voting in the dark. You know, he also mentioned something about sensitive materials flying all over the place, and I mean it took the intervention or the presence of security officials to, well, prevent some people from making away with some of those sensitive materials.
We haven't been getting a lot of those reports of breakdown of law and order, as he said, was also prevented in that particular instance. And despite the hue and cry, I'd like to get your sense of your impression in the build-up to the elections of, please, we don't want any violence. We don't want any violence from Barack Obama to the man on the street, to the NGOs.
Exactly.
It seems to me, or what is the perception now, that there hasn't been that sort of any breakdown of law and order reported across the board concerning the elections?
Well, I don't know what Kadaria's reaction is going to be to this that you've just posed, but I think generally Nigerians, and that's why I asked Mr. Michael Mary that question, I think Nigerians this time want to have peace, and many people conduct themselves quite maturely at the polls. When I got to the polling center this morning, someone was going to start talking about PDP and APC. And someone quickly jumped in and said, look, we're not going to have that conversation here today. And so, and everybody quickly agreed to that. And then we just started talking about something else. So I think generally, as against what many people anticipated was going to happen at the polls, we didn't see that today. I think generally people learned to conduct themselves people actually reined others in who were going to start a fight or something like that. And I think that is something that we saw across board. I don't know what Kadaria would say.
Yeah, I mean, the calls by the various people who sort of intervened and said, you know, don't be violent, I think by and large have been heeded by Nigerians, but there were always two periods that people are very concerned about when it comes to elections. The first is, of course, the election itself, you know, the conduct of the elections where people will try to intimidate voters or, you know, do the snatching of ballot papers, etc. And by and large, I think we've sort of gone through that. Apart from a few places, no problems. The next major point is, of course, after results have been announced.
Post-election violence.
Post-election violence is also a major concern. And I think, again, we've seen all the candidates as well as the other interested parties, locally, internationally, tell people, listen, respect the process, accept the results. And I think personally that the ability of Nigerians, particularly those who are not very educated, to accept results is largely driven by their perception of how credible those results are. And so it is in our interest that we, you know, make sure that INEC continues to conduct itself. So far, we've had no reason to question how they're doing these elections. But, you know, if they continue this way, then really what it is that they're minimizing the chances of anybody saying there's a problem with this result. And I think that is critical to, you know, whether you see people getting angry or not, because what causes the anger is the feeling that we've been disenfranchised, we voted, but our votes didn't count.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be coming back to that thought about election violence or the lack of it or the anticipation of it. But for now, we have on the line our Imo State correspondent, Eitokwe Kuti. I am sure he might be at the Collation Center now, but he is on the line from Owerri, the Imo State capital. Hello, Tokwe.
Yeah, good evening, Charles.
Well, where exactly are you now?
Yeah, I'm in Owerri North right now.
So what's the situation there?
Yeah, the collation is ongoing.
So why is it that the collation is going on there so late in the day?
Yeah, we started early. Like, first, you know, we have to give it to the electorate in Imo State. Massive turnout today in all the polling units. You know, massive turnout. And there's this usual problem of late arrival of materials. While some were lucky to get the materials early, some experienced late arrival. And where it not is not a difference. It's not a difference too. So that's why the collation is entering this late.
Well, were there any issues with the card readers like we have been hearing from other parts of the country?
Yes, sure. Like in Omuma ward, you know, there was a big issue because before now, there are some red spot areas in Imo State during elections. We have Boru East, we have Oraji Egbemia and Oguta. And today is not different because in Omuma ward, elections didn't even started very late because of the little violence that wanted to erupt, just because of the security operatives that came and handled the situation, you know. So, for example, in some areas, just like in Owerri North too, you know, there was issue of this card reader problem, you know. People will have to queue for long, stay for long before the card reader would screen just one person for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Well, at this point, Tokwe, we'll have to let you go, but definitely we will coming back to you to give us an update on the situation in Owerri North and probably whatever is happening in Imo State. But for now, I understand that we have the report on the INEC chairman explaining a number of things concerning the challenges over this election and, of course, the reasons why collation and voting and probably the announcement of the results ultimately has to be extended. We have Professor Atahiru Jega in this report coming up in the moment.
And you're going